All right, guys. So what we're going to do now is actually build a custom endpoint to both demonstrate that and to be able to use the post image, which is tied to the database, to actually upload the file to image file collection, which is the file system. So we're going to go ahead and open up post-image.js, and this is the file we're going to be working in. Everything we write is going to be between these opening and closing braces. So everything in here, this is where we're going to write, and it's going to export all of these. Now, with the export, we have a function basically that gets this property as the single parameter. What I'm going to do is, I noticed the I is lowercase, and for the sake of consistency, I'm going to change it to a capital because that's the actual name of the collection. So let's go ahead and save this. And then before we even start, we're going to install an npm package called Sharp. And what Sharp will allow us to do is to make modifications to the image. So when we upload a post image, we want two versions of it. We want the full-sized image. Let's say we're going to display it as a banner across the top of the page, and then the post title will be inside of it. And then we also want a really scaled down version of it to act as a thumbnail, so we don't have to, I'm thinking about the index page that shows the complete list of posts. I don't want to pull in, let's say, 20 images, one for each post, at full size to embed. That's going to cause some serious lag. So what we're going to do is, on the fly, on uploading an image, we're going to manipulate it and create a copy of it that's scaled down to probably 100 by 100 pixels. So to do that, let's go ahead and type npm install -- save sharp and hit enter. And that's all we need to do there. Now, with importing libraries in loopback, that's going to differ a little bit from how we use the import statements in React. So we're going to be using require.js, and that allows us to essentially assign a variable name to the required library. So to do that, let's go ahead and under where it says use strict, we're going to create a constant. So const sharp equals, and now we're going to require the library that we just installed. So the require is a function, and then the parameter is a string, and it's the library that we want to import, which is called Sharp. And now we can use Sharp as defined here anywhere within our code. So the very first thing that we need to do is we actually need to create a configuration of the method that we're going to create. And this instantiates the remote method, which is, I guess it's synonymous with the endpoint itself. This is going to create the URL and call a function. So let's go ahead, and we're going to write post image, which is accessing this property here, dot remote method, and this is a function that's going to take two primary parameters. So I'm going to jump down to the next line. The first parameter is basically the URL that we want to have this function run at. So it's going to be upload. And now the second parameter is an object, and we are going to add a description. We're going to set certain parameters that we can post to the URL. So we're going to need the image file itself, access token, stuff like that. And then we're going to specify a return property, something that we're going to return. So inside this object, first let's specify description, and it's going to be uploads a file, just like that. The second parameter is going to be accepts. So this is all of the input fields. So it's an array, so we're going to open that up, and now it's an array of objects. So the argument that we're going to call it, okay, so let's say CTX. This is going to be the context. And the context is going to hold certain information like the actual file that we're uploading, the post parameters and stuff. So that's going to be accessible within the function that we're going to create later, and is going to be accessible as the argument context. The type is going to be object. And then you're going to write HTTP, and it's an object, and the source is going to be context. So it's getting the context from the app already. Now put a comma and jump down to the next line, and we're going to also pass in options. So the second parameter here is going to be written in the same way. The arg property is going to be options. This is what we're going to access it within the function that we create later as. The type is going to be object, and then we're going to say the source of it. So HTTP is going to be source, and this is going to be available via the query. Then we also want the access token. So arg access token. The type is going to be a string. And then we also want the post ID and the user ID, I guess. So arg post ID is going to be type string. So now these are all the properties that we're going to pass to the remote method that we create. The top two, we don't need to manually create them. We're specifying where they are being drawn from. So the context is going to pull in the CTX property, and then the query is going to pull in options. So that's all we need to do for the accepts property. And then we need to also specify returns. So this is going to be what we return from this remote method. So the arg is going to be file object. We're just going to return file object. And type is going to be object, and root is going to be true. So what this means is the root response is going to be this object here that we're specifying. And then one last thing is going to be HTTP, and here we can specify where this is going to be available at. If it's going to be a put method, a get method, or a post method, and in this instance we're going to say post. So verb is going to be equal to post, all lowercase. And then we're going to put a semicolon there. An indentation got screwed up, I guess. So let's fix all auto-fixable problems. And then again right here, fix all auto-fixable problems. And then quick fix again. There we go. So this looks a lot better. So I'm going to save this, and now we actually need to create postimage.upload. So what we're specifying here as the name of the remote method is also going to be the method that we need to create up here. So there's two parts of this. There's this block of code right here, which configures the route. And then we need to create the route's actual function. And this indentation is going to get annoying. So I'll probably just write it like this and then fix it later. So what we're going to say, we're going to access post image, not caret position, post image dot upload is going to be equal to a function, and then the function is going to get the CTX options access token and the post ID, as well as a callback. So we're going to need 5 properties, the 4 that we've specified, and an additional callback that we're going to reference from within the remote method. So let's go ahead and type in the property names that we're inheriting from this route. So CTX options access underscore token post underscore ID, and then also CB for callback. And then let's open up this function. This token is declared, but its value is never used. Oh yeah. All right, this is going to get annoying. So unfortunately, I just realized that we're not actually going to be able to test this route without using maybe like something like Postman, some application where you can post a file to a route. Otherwise, we would have to wait until we circle back to our React application to be able to test this route out. So just keep that in mind. This route will be untested until we actually get to a point where we're able to post to this route. So under this function, what we're going to do first is if there are no options, we actually need it. So if there are no options, we're going to say options equals this, just a blank object. And then we need to get the container. So if we don't have an existing container, we'll come back to this as well. Well, actually, let's just, yeah, so the container we'll create is called post images. So CTX, my keyboard is like slightly out of place and it causes that. CTX dot request, so REQ for request, params container is going to be equal to post images, and we're specifying that here because what we're about to do is actually call the upload function using the CTX request. And yeah, so what we'll do is we'll also so let's check if if this directory doesn't exist, then we'll have to create it. So I'm going to import a new thing. It's going to be const fs equals require fs, and this will give this script access to the file system. And so what we'll do is we will check if it exists. So we're going to be looking for, under server storage, there needs to be a directory called post images. If there's not, then we are going to create it. So if exclamation point fs dot exists sync and this is camel case, so exists, and then capital S for sync. And it's a function. So we're going to say we're looking for under server, and it's going to be in the current directory. So when we start the application, we're not in the server directory, we're at the directory just above that. So we can look in the current directory, server slash storage slash, and then we're going to put ctx.rec.params.container. So if this does not exist, then we're going to call fs.mkdir sync. And we're going to create server slash storage slash and then ctx.rec.params.container. And the reason we're using that property is so anytime we can just, kind of update that if we wanted to, and we'd be able to. Yeah, this indentation is going to be annoying. All right, so let's save this. And now what we're going to do is just like in server.js where we could access app.models. Whatever the model was that we were trying to access, we have the same possibility in here, but we don't have app defined. We have just the collection defined. So we can type postimage.app.models, etc. And so that's what we need to do here under the creation of the container. If it doesn't exist, we're going to say postimage.app.models image file, and this is the actual image file collection here, and this is the actual file system storage collection. So we are now, if we look at the loopback explorer page, we can see we have an upload method. That's actually what we're calling right now. So from the post images, we're going to connect the image files upload.